Hi everyone, and welcome to the second video in my series of Dreamcast reviews. Today we're going to be looking at the classic game Jet Grind Radio.
Jet Grind Radio!
Jet Grind Radio takes place in the fictional city of Tokyo that can't be found on any map, but is referred to as simply, now get this, Tokyo. There are rival street gangs that want to tag the streets and hold different territories over the city, such as the Love Shockers, the Noise Tanks, the Poison Jam, and then there's your gang, the GGs. All through playing the game, there's a very informative pirate radio station called Jet Set Radio that's hosted by Professor K, who gives you information about the story between each of the stages. And finally, there's the captain of the police force and the police force themselves, who want to put you and your gang behind bars, after gassing you and shooting you with a handgun, of course, which we'll get into a little later on. And boy does he get pissed when you grind away and he cannot murder you. The way the progression works is that you start off meeting new characters and showing off your skills. It's basically a version of Simon Says. If you meet their goals or beat them in races, they then join your gang and become a playable character with their own power, technique, and paint levels. Each character does feel different to play with, which is a nice variety to the gameplay. The main portion of the game involves stages with a time limit where you go around and tag all items required. If you don't tag everything within the allotted time, or lose your power, you fail and need to start again. You go around the level and tag specified areas of the map for your gang, tagging over other gangs' graffiti, or tagging brand new areas. You do need to collect yellow or blue spray cans around the map, which are needed to tag the locations since you start off with no paint. Small graffiti sections use only one can of paint, while the larger ones can take several cans, so it's important to go around and collect as much paint as your character can hold. When tagging more complex graffiti, you need to follow different prompts with the left analog stick which pop up on the bottom of the screen. If you mess up, you need to start that section again, adding to your time and increasing the chance you get hit by the enemies, reducing your health level. There are red cans that are used to restore your health after getting hit by buses, cars, breathing in riot gas, or shot by the captain at point-blank range. At the end of each stage, you're given a rating based on your score trying to get that jet level. Only scrubs are pedals. You need to avoid the police force and the captain who's trying to shoot you. This includes SWAT teams, shooting riot gas, sending out police dogs, tanks, and even attack helicopters with homing missiles. Now these helicopters can be tagged and taken down. It's embarrassing to admit how long this took me to figure out. The story starts out simple enough, with the rival gangs squaring off and trying to take over their section of the city, and even one gang stealing your dog. But then it gets very complicated. There's an evil corporation, the Rokakus, led by their CEO Goji Rokaku, who wants to somehow take over the world with a vinyl record and harness the demonic powers. And your gang are the only ones that can stop them. Honestly, the story is just there to give you an excuse to get to another stage and do some cool grinding and tagging, and I stopped paying attention to what was happening pretty early on. Moving on to the graphics, the cel-shaded 3D style has aged really well. Everything looks clean and bright, making this a very pleasant looking game that holds up to this day. There is some bad pop-in that occurs, and there are slowdowns on the Dreamcast, but it's not unplayable by any means. Just goes to show how having a good art style pays off in the long run. In terms of the audio, the music is excellent. Professor K has those jams. Each level has a song that you can't help but put you in a good mood and fits the game perfectly, gets your body moving. It's simply fantastic. The sounds in the game are also really good, from the sound design of your magnetic rollerblades or the buses and cars beeping at you. Overall, it's a great audio experience. Now the gameplay is where most of my problems with this game exist. First of all, the exits in each level should be labeled better and optional. I can't tell you how many times I was forced to exit while evading the police or getting hit by a bus because I didn't realize that this section of the map was an exit. When that happens, you need to go back to the menu and start over, removing all progress made on that level. Also, the decision that the change camera and spray paint tagging button should be mapped to the same left trigger was an awful one. There are several face buttons that don't get used that could have been 100 times better. It's really frustrating to try and tag a section to only have your camera snap to a different direction entirely, and your character do the exact opposite of what you want. Another frustrating part of the gameplay is how precise you need to be in your jumps and especially grinds. For having these futuristic magnetic grinding rollerblades, I can't tell you the number of times I missed grinding on a rail by inches and failed a level due to it. I'm looking at you, Yo-Yo. And probably the biggest complaint is a very common one with all 3D Dreamcast games, so I don't fault Jet Grind Radio completely. And that's not having the ability to control the camera with a second analog stick. It's honestly crazy how bad this feels coming back to a lot of these older games and you can't move the camera to how you want and your character ends up behind a wall or stuck somewhere you can't see. You can imagine the frustration when you need precision to not fall off a ledge and tag a hard to reach area only to fall off in a different direction because you couldn't see the platform ends. So my final thoughts. While this game can be very frustrating with its controls, and I did have to put it down multiple times, it's still a very enjoyable game that holds up to today's standards. It looks very pretty, has a solid gameplay loop that encourages multiple playthroughs to try and find the optimal routes and methods to get those high scores, and of course, has a really fantastic soundtrack that helps push this game to an all-time classic Dreamcast status, in my opinion. Thanks for watching, and please let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to check out on the Dreamcast. I'll be hoping to be putting out more videos in the coming weeks.
And I'm your captain and DJ, Professor K. Jet Set Radio!